82nd annual show of the mighty Aberdeen hangers. Here, the judging takes place in the streets, and class champions are auctioned. These are the bovine aristocrats whose breed has enriched the finest herds in the world. And champion of champions today, Erwin of Harveston, the most perfect Aberdeen hangers ever shown. Erwin's broken all records by fetching at auction no less than 7,875 pounds. Taking time off from world problems, the United Nations delegates dine in London's Guildhall as guests of the City Corporation. Speeches are cordial and admirably brief, as Mr. Attlee's.
I'm a Londoner. A Cockney. Born when the sound of the traffic was not too great, within the sound of Bow bells. And I'm a proud Londoner. London is to me the flower of cities all. That city which I should like to describe in the words of an old historian, a most triumphant city.
Oh, well done. Perhaps the most distinguished cosmopolitan company ever gathered in this venerable Guildhall, and for them the ancient ceremony of the loving cup is appropriately honored. As in world affairs, the matter of the loving cup seems to call for some give and take, too. Informal, genial good fellowship, the best possible atmosphere for a meeting of the world's great men. All roads in Birmingham led to Villa Park. It was Tuesday afternoon, but when Villa in a cup tie, work is a secondary consideration. It was the second leg of the fifth round. The Midlanders had established a lead at Stamford Bridge, but it was only by one goal, so it was anybody's match as the veteran Cummings led the Claret and Blues onto the field. The home side won the toss, and before a great crowd, Tommy Lawton kicked off for Chelsea. The first half went by without a goal scored. Second half, Villa hanging on to their one-goal lead, Chelsea still confident. Soon after the resumption, the ball went to Goffin, and the Villa right winger scored. There was plenty more lively play, but no further goals. So Villa passed into round 6.
Timely arrival at the Royal Albert Docks with a shipload of food, a present from the State of Victoria, Australia. It was sent by the good folk of the Commonwealth as a gift to hospitals, widows and old age pensioners, and very welcome it was. The food was shipped before the present crisis developed. St. Thomas's was one of the hospitals to which the food was also given. The much-appreciated gift made welcome changes in the patient's diet, bringing delicacies nowadays all too rare. Tins were no sooner in the building than they were opened. Both Australia and Canada, responding to the food emergency of Britain, are rushing supplies here by all available ships. Old and young, we shall all benefit. February not only filled dikes, it inundated large areas in the Midlands, the North and the West countries. Sudden torrential rains made the waters rise quicker than even elderly people could remember. and the inhabitants of many places had very little warning. Low-lying parts of Shrewsbury were swamped by the overflowing River Severn, which crossed its banks in many places between here and Gloucester. Scores of cars and lorries were marooned. Long stretches of main line were impassable, and for 2 days, transport was very much up against it. Many numbers were definitely engaged. Getting to and from work would have been out of the question without horses and carts. In Stafford, whole streets of people were driven upstairs, and the fire brigade undertook the job of taking hot food to people who hadn't had so much as a cup of tea for 24 hours. But it's an ill flood that doesn't float some fun for small boys. Almost as quickly as it had risen, the water began to go down, not without leaving a mess which won't be cleared up for quite a while. Barges were piled up against the bridge at Northwich by the floodwaters of the River Weaver. Altogether, the country will have to foot a big bill for damage.
A Pompey greeting for one of our greatest aircraft carriers, the Formidable. For years away in the Mediterranean and the Pacific, the Formidable has a battle history without equal. There's a record crowd here lining the quay from end to end, and the excitement ashore matches the excitement aboard. The Formidable has a tale of heroism and endurance to tell that would open both Nelson's eyes. For the Japs more than once nearly finished her off with suicide planes. On fire, her boilers useless, her flight deck wrecked. But here she is, patched up a bit, home from the wars, and long-separated families are reunited. And in this grand ship is someone whose voice you know, Captain Anthony Kimmins. Tell us how you feel, Tony.
We had a wonderful trip back. They gave us a terrific send-off from Sydney. All the tugs were hooting their signs, everybody rushing down to give us a farewell. And then we had the same thing again at Cape Town. They gave us wonderful, just 3 days there. But believe me, there's nothing can touch coming into here like this in this homecoming. This is the best of the whole bunch.
Carried unanimously. For the Formidable especially, there's no place like home. The 1,000-pound bomb in St. James's Park, with Buckingham Palace only a quarter of a mile away, has been disposed of. That's a modest way of speaking of 1,000 pounds of temperamental TNT at the bottom of a 30-foot shaft. After weeks of tricky and exceedingly dangerous work, the TNT has been steamed out, and there remains the fuse itself now to be exploded, and that's quite dangerous enough. And here it comes. And that's the end of another of Hitler's legacies, and another example of the cold-blooded heroism of the bomb disposal boys. Thanks to them, St. James's Park is safe again. A holiday for Mr. Churchill is apparently a pretty strenuous affair. Here he is leaving Army Field, Miami, for a 200-mile flight across the Florida Strait to Havana, capital of Cuba, where his cigars come from, and where he'll be welcomed by President Ramon Joao San Martin. And in Havana, a Churchillian response to the presidential greeting.
Gentlemen, Mr. President, I thank you cordially for your very kind welcome to me on my holiday, visiting your beautiful island. And I express a sentiment in which all can join when I say, Viva la Perla de las Antillas.
Long live the Pearl of the Antilles. Well, that's worth 100 coronas at least.